Welcome to another episode of Between Two Nerds. My name is Nick Stowe. I'm the State Chief Technology Officer for the state of Washington. Today, we're going to talk about one of the nerdiest topics that exists, at least when it comes to this podcast, and that's architecture. With me today, I have my guest, Rob Allred, who serves as the state's chief architect. Thank you for joining me, Rob.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Before we get into how nerdy architecture is as a topic, I'd like to hear a little bit about your background and how you got into architecture. And then I have a challenge for you, and that's I want you to explain to me what architecture is, but you've got to explain it to me like I'm 5. So first, a little bit about you and your background and how you got into architecture, please.
Okay. Well, thanks for asking that question. I started my journey on, technology back kind of about the time the internet started popping up. I got into computer science. I got my degree there. I wrote software and started realizing that, the applications that we were making needed some architecture to them and kind of started filling that role and moved on to more challenging areas of architecture until eventually I ended up here with you here at the state of Washington as the chief architect. And just a little bit on the nerdiness thing, like we encourage nerdiness. We are a big tent. Architecture means everyone's on their own journey when it comes to being nerdy, and we embrace that. We think that's a fun part of this. If I were going to explain architecture to a 5-year-old, it kind of takes me back to the days when I used to get up in the middle of the night and step on Legos that were on my floor and thinking about my son building stuff out of Legos, which was sometimes frustrating for him, right? He'd come in and he'd get something and start building it, and sometimes it's tough.
And there's always a missing piece.
Yes, oh my goodness, yes. But the Legos, they come with a set of instructions, like if you have the Lego, because we're nerdy, Millennium Falcon, right? Just for instance, and you were going to build that, it has, pictures and diagrams about how to build sections of the Millennium Falcon and put it together, and you end up with the end product, right? And that's very similar to the architecture that we're talking about, not to be confused with building architecture, right? IT architecture is conceptually allowing people to be able to create, solutions using technology to be able to do things on the internet and with computers. And similar to building the Millennium Falcon out of Legos, right? Once you've built it, it's not something you want to play with it, right? And sometimes it doesn't always, it crashes and you need to repair it. It needs to be modified so Chewbacca can fit in there better. And so much like IT architecture, it's not just build it once and you're done. You have to continue to make changes to what you're working on and add functionality that's important. You may want to change lasers out for, death ray or something like that, So those are important things for us to be able to think about.
So my second question. Yeah. You've passed my first test.
Okay.
Which was explain architecture to me like I'm 5. Nailed it. So I think that was great. I'd also like to get your thoughts on, so we talked a little bit about what architecture is, but can you tell me more about why it's important? Really, why should I care, other than it being a very fun analogy for Legos? Why is architecture important to the state of Washington and to the residents of our state?
Right. Well, here at the state of Washington, it's really interesting the diverse amount of things that the state government is involved in, critical things that affects people's daily life. We learned a lot about it during the pandemic from, health information that need to be disseminated and everyone wants to read it, or unemployment, or being able to know, what the restrictions are and contact tracing, all these things that can happen, right? And so the roads and bridges, the services that we offer affect people's daily lives.
I like how you framed, especially at the end where you talked about architecture being a discipline that informs the decisions that we make around technology. One thing that I've noticed working in technology for as long as I have, and I'm sure you have too, is that technology changes so quickly. So can you tell me a little bit about how architecture and how architects help decision makers understand when new technology or when changes in technology could be incorporated in to better serve their customers?
Yeah, this is The answer to this question is probably a valuable answer, right? People who are good at this would be able to do it. I like to tell everyone that an internet year is 3 months. I've been living in that world where technology and everything changes so quickly that it's outpaces regular life. It certainly outpaces governance, legislation, and stuff like that. And so we have to make decisions on when's the right time to be able to adopt a technology that makes sense for us, and when not to actually is an important thing. And so part of an architect's job is to be able to evaluate the landscape of choices of tools and things that are available and decide when the right time, to make that choice is. And it is not an easy one. And in a world where I don't even know, it's not Moore's law, the 3-month internet year. It might be accelerating with artificial intelligence and stuff like that. We have a landscape that is changing quickly and it needs our attention. And that's a big role of architects, is to be able to evaluate the technologies that we use and how we employ them in government here.
One question I had for you is specifically around equity. Can you tell me a little bit about how the discipline of architecture helps Washington state deliver services in an equitable way, specifically to those communities who have been historically marginalized or underserved?
Yeah, no, that's a good one, Nick. One of the things I like to tell people is I feel like architecture can change the world. And one of the ways that it can do that is in being intentional as we develop systems to provide services to all the people in the state of Washington, that we're intentional about being able to make that accessible to everyone, especially the most vulnerable populations who might struggle in these areas, and be cognizant of that. And when we're designing systems and architecture, we're thinking about that early, right? Not as an afterthought, but and we want to make sure stuff can work with a screen reader and be accessible to everyone, physically too, that might have limitations. And so being able to bake that in by design, that is there, is one of the ways that we can help change things for people in the state of Washington. And I feel like that can really happen. That's not just something we say. We do. We'll put that in action.
Well, I think that's a good note to end on. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I also am really excited to see all future Lego-themed analogies for architecture to help build awareness.
I think there's a whole category there. We need to work on that. We'll have a repository for that. That's good.
Thank you.